Transportation Alternatives. Thanks. We are here today to talk about the streets plan, what it is, what it has been, what it can be, what's next. And because next Tuesday, the City Council is holding their first major oversight hearing, and the topic being the streets plan, which you're really excited about. It sends a great message from the Transportation Committee that they are looking at what is happening on our streets, what should be happening on our streets, and opportunities for doing bigger, bolder things. Um, if folks want to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're come from, what brought you here, any organizational affiliation, please do. And also, we've got a kind of a good close-knit group, so please feel free to drop any questions in the chat during, and we'll do kind of a Q&A at the end. So any questions around, process of the hearing or the streets plan nitty-gritty itself, all are welcome. And thank you for being here. And I'm joined by Alexa, my colleague, who will be co-facilitating. Alexa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Alexa. I'm on the communications team here at TA, and we'll be talking a little bit more about what we're looking for in the streets plan, how to prepare to testify at City Hall, how to submit testimony, and everything you need to know to feel comfortable showing up in person on Tuesday or submitting testimony online also on Tuesday.
Great. Thanks, Alexa. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, great. Can everyone see that? Perfect. All right. So streets plan, here we are, New York City streets plan. So our agenda, we'll talk a little bit about what's happening, what the streets plan is, where are we, what has worked and not worked in the past, and then looking ahead to the future, and hearing prep. Okay, so the problem, what's going on? The problem, as many of us know, as TA activists and partners and folks engaged in the public space, is that our streets are primarily designed for vehicles, even though most people don't commute by cars, which has resulted in limited safe streets infrastructure, in extremely slow buses, the slowest in the nation, in overcrowded sidewalks, and a fragmented bike network. This is not new to any of us. Simply put, we have designed streets in a way that doesn't put people first, and it is time to change that. And we are all living the effects of that every single day in several ways. Here is an example of the problem. If folks want to call out what is wrong here, you can put in the chat. But right, these people are turning onto the street where there's no protected, safe bike infrastructure. It is very much a car-heavy street. Whatever lane is in front of this person is blocked in cars. Really not well done in terms of safe streets design. I hope that they are safe and okay. And here's another example of this, stalled buses stuck in traffic when ideally they would be able to move quickly and faster than the pace of walking. All right. So just to put a finer point on it, average bus speeds in New York are the slowest in the country. Over 3,000 New Yorkers are seriously injured in traffic crashes each year. Over 200 people are killed by cars every year. And there are 15 council districts that have no protected bike lanes at all. And not only do several council districts not have any bike infrastructure, where we do see bike infrastructure in the city, it is unequally distributed. There are gaps in the network, and it is unequally concentrated in parts of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn. We are not seeing kind of the full scale of street safety citywide that we deserve. And that's where the streets plan comes in. So what is the streets plan? It is a transportation blueprint designed to address our city's public space needs. It sets ambitious metrics for bike and bus mileage and pedestrian space citywide. So anyone who wants to share anything about, how familiar you are with the streets plan, this please, put any notes in the chat. This was passed by council law in 2019, and really said the goal of it was saying, look, like we're doing piecemeal block by block street design, which will take way too long to actually have a full scale, holistic street design that we deserve. We cannot just be looking at one bike lane and one intersection and one bus lane at a time. We really should step back and say, what do we need as a city to have the streetscape that we deserve? And so 2019, the council passed this. It's every 5 years, the city is required to put out this blueprint. So the first one was in 2021. We are coming to the end of the first 5 years of the first blueprint. At the end of 2026, they will be required to put out their second streets plan. So their second blueprint, they will have to do this every 5 years. And this is just kind of what the legislation says. Each master plan shall include proposals for street redesigns, protected bus lanes, protected bike lanes, uh, bus bike parking, which folks are familiar with the secure bike parking work that's going forward. That was included in the streets plan, commercial loading, truck routes, all of these. So really looking at it in several ways. And there are very clear metrics that were required in the legislation. This is a little bit of what our city could look like if we had followed all of the requirements of the streets plan. If we were up to date on all of the miles that were supposed to be built around bus lanes, all of the miles that have required to be built for bike lanes. It is a much calmer image of our city than what folks currently see today. There's also secure bike parking here, right? There's all these things that we could include and require in the streets plan of saying, looking at loading, looking at truck routes and all of that, because we know that all of these pieces work together, and we have an obligation to take on all of them to get to where we need to be. Great. Where we are now. So the streets plan was meant to move us out of trench warfare toward a citywide comprehensive plan. Um, the scale of this we know is quite serious. The vast majority of New York City streets do not have a protected bike lane. This speaks for itself. Just 2% our street miles have a protected bike lane. 98% are unprotected. We have a lot of work to do. The stakes are high. The scale is big, and yet we are quite woefully behind in getting there. And that's where we get to what's working and what's not working. Um, when the streets plan first went into effect, there were a number of projects that were advanced, that were promoted, saying, the city should be looking at outer boroughs, particularly the Bronx, I will say, as a place where a number of bike lane projects advanced, that the former commissioner, Udanis Rodriguez, said, we have this mandate to put in a lot of safe streets infrastructure and bike infrastructure particularly. And the Bronx went from 6% to over 20% of protected bike lanes. So we have seen some progress in some places. And some years the city has done better than others. In 2024, and at Transportation Alternatives, we put together a bike lane tracker, not only to assess how the city was doing, but to push them to have to meet these requirements every year. The beauty of bike lane and bus lane mileage requirement is it shows very clearly, have you hit it or have you not? And it pushed the city to get a lot closer to the requirements than I think they may have otherwise been. And that accountability of saying you've only done 20% of your required bike lane mileage this year, you have to go a lot further. That pushed them a little bit, I would say, to do more. But then, as we know, under Eric Adams, a lot of projects stalled, a lot of projects started but didn't get finished, or a lot of projects then got subject to political interference and got rolled back. So we've got a lot of work to do, is the point of the story. On bus lanes, particularly, and then I would also say on pedestrian space. So under the first uh, streets plan blueprint, on year one, there was a requirement for 1 million square feet of pedestrian space, which was great. A lot of work was done. And then in subsequent years, there were no requirements around pedestrian space. We want to bring that back. We need a lot more pedestrian plazas, a lot more curb extensions, even just wider sidewalks, and a lot more around public space available for people walking and just getting together with friends, getting outside, having places to sit and gather. So that one has stalled as well. Any questions so far on where we are today with the streets plan? Great. Okay, and so where we are today is that the city council is the administration and the city is working on the next iteration of the streets plan. So because these are 5-year blueprints, they now are working on what is going to be included around metrics and outcomes and requirements of the mandates for the 2027 to 2032 streets plan blueprint. It is an opportunity for us to check in on where we are, say we are behind on the requirements of the first streets plan, and then saying what do we want to change, what do we want to add to, how do we want to think bigger and better for the next streets plan as we go into this new administration that has just started. Which brings us to Mayor Mamdani. Just recently, he said, we are bringing the streets master plan back to life. We are starting it up again. It really stalled under the last couple of years of Eric Adams. And we know that what we need is a real restart, a real reinvestment in the streets plan to get it back on track, as well as get our next version to be a lot bigger. This is what the law says around what's required in the next streets plan, just so folks have a frame of reference of what is legally mandated for the city to do. And this is due by December 1st, the next streets plan. It has to have the benchmarks that are required are complete a connected bike network, and ensure a bicycle lane network coverage of 100%, install protected bus lanes on all bus routes where such improvements can be installed accessible pedestrian signals, bus stop upgrades, and redesign at least 2,000 intersections with pedestrian signal, with at least 400 intersections redesigned during each year, and then install or upgrade pedestrian ramps at no fewer than 3,000 intersection requirement corners. So these are all legally required benchmarks. It's notable because the first phase, there was, 50 miles of bike lanes each year, 30 miles of bus lanes each year. This next version you can see is really predicated on the idea that we hit the first one, and saying, well, now we should be able to get to 100% full coverage of our streets. We should really be in a place by the end of 10 years. We have built out a protected bike lane system network and bus network that is covering all of our streets where it is feasible. So what is here is ambitious and bold and great, and we need to do the work to make it actually happen and to hold the administration accountable to do it. Okay. Emily's question in the chat: where is this language screenshotted from? Is it available online? Yes, it is. This is the bill text. It is available. It's viewable on the council website where you can look up the bill. Someone may share it in the chat, or I can send it in a little bit. But yeah, but yes, it's online. It is the legal language. Great. Okay, so here's where we start to get creative of what do we need now to bring us on track, and what do we want to add looking forward? What have we learned in the last few years of what the city how we can take the streets plan, not just to meeting the mark, but thinking bigger and better. We have a mayor who has committed to this, who has said repeatedly he wants to make New York City the envy of the world when it comes to our streetscape. And our job is to push him to think of all the things that are required to get us there. And I'm going to pass it to Alexa to take it from there.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So now that we've covered what the streets plan is, why it exists, and what happened in the past, we want to talk about what we're fighting about for the future, for the next generation. The first phase of the streets plan, this is its final year, and so we're beginning the process, and City Council really is beginning the process of thinking about the next one. And we want them to be thinking about certain things to include in that plan as they're creating it and writing it. As we know, they fell far short of the metrics for the last streets plan, so you want to ensure that the DOT isn't asking for and getting a potential law that is a lot weaker than the last one. We can't allow something where they didn't finish it last time, so it's going to be easier the next time. It's got to be, oh, you didn't finish it last time, we're going to make those metrics the exact same, if not more, and you've got to do what you didn't do last time. And so that's kind of where we're coming from on this. So let's go through our top 8 asks. And when you're writing your own testimony today, tomorrow, anytime through Tuesday, you can include all these asks, some of these asks, really whatever feels the most relevant and important to you. So first, fully fund and staff DOT. Got a lot of news coverage during the Eric Adams administration. There was a hiring freeze in much of city government due to several budget crises that he had. And as part of this hiring freeze, he had several. Then he then had a 2 in, 1 out policy, a 4 out, 1 in policy, all kinds of crazy stuff, basically making it so that nobody could get a job at these city agencies. And without jobs, there's no one to design the bike lane networks. There's no one to hire the contractors to pour the Jersey barriers or whatever other things they're doing over there. And you really need staff to make these things happen. So we're calling for a fully funded and staffed DOT. And the funding means that the city government is also giving DOT enough money to ensure that the agency can do everything that we're asking them to do. Next, Sammy's Law 20 mile per hour slow zones. Sammy's Law is a law that TA and FSS fought for a couple of years ago up in Albany that finally allows New York City to control its own speed limits. Kind of crazy that that was not previously the case, but now it is because of Sammy's Law. And Sammy's Law allows the city to reduce the speed limits on the vast majority of streets down to 20 miles per hour. So we want the next streets plan to require that DOT actually uses this new power in a much more expansive way than they are right now and bring that around every single school. Right now, DOT has enacted Sammy's Law on something like less than 2% of eligible streets. So they have this incredible power that they're mostly sitting on, and we want them to use. Next would be expediting the streets plan itself. So as we previously discussed, basically the past administration really left the current administration in a tough position because there's still one more year of the streets plan. But Eric Adams did not build over 100 miles of bike lanes that he needed to build for the city to be on track to meet those legal requirements. So we need to expedite the old streets plan and ensure that those bike lanes and those bus lanes don't just go missing, don't just go ignored, but they actually get built and they actually get built now. Next, pedestrian plazas. So Elizabeth already touched on this a little bit earlier, but in the initial couple of years of the streets plan, there were these pedestrian plaza requirements that made it so the city had to build them every single year. But unlike so many other requirements in the law, those actually sunset. So there were no more pedestrian plaza requirements after 2023. So we not only want to bring those requirements back, we want to make sure that they continue every single year. We want to ensure that every single year New York City is building new pedestrian plazas and giving space that used to be for cars back to people also all around the 5 boroughs. We don't want just pedestrian plazas in up and down Broadway. We want pedestrian plazas in every single borough in every corner of the city. Next slide. Okay, we also want outcome targets that are beyond what they're using right now. So right now we're doing bus and bike lane miles. So in the initial law, we don't need to stick with just miles. Obviously, we don't want to get rid of it because it's a really critical way to ensure how much they're doing. But we want more than that too. We want New York City to reach 1 million daily bike rides, which is very doable. We're not that far away from that. We're something like 700,000. Someone can fact check me on that. And we want to get to 1 million by 2030, and that's totally possible if we keep counting and we keep building the infrastructure people need to feel safe and choose biking. Next, catch up, do everything that you haven't done and actually complete it. This is a legal law. The streets plan is not a suggestion or a guideline or a vibe. It is a legal requirement that you are mandated to do. When you don't do the streets plan, you are breaking the law. Not the first time the last administration was breaking the law, but they were breaking the law and they can't just get away with that. Next is VMT and mode shift. This is kind of a little bit more technical, but the idea is that VMT is vehicle miles traveled. It's the amount that a car is traveling around New York City. And so one of our big things they're pushing for all the time, obviously, is fewer cars, but not just fewer cars traveling fewer miles. So we want to ensure that even people who have to drive are doing so in shorter distances or less often and trying to get as many trips as possible shifted towards sustainable modes. So if we can turn that potential car ride into a bike ride or into a train ride or into a quick bus ride, that's going to reduce BMT over time. And it's a really great metric for ensuring that people are choosing these more sustainable and better ways of getting around. Uh, and then lastly, connect the network. We have a lot of random bike lanes in and around different areas that don't necessarily connect. That's why I'm sure a lot of you noticed the big crash lane announcement from 2 weeks ago, where they finally connected a really critical hole in the bike network because we want to have a bike network that is connected. Your bike commute is only as safe as your most dangerous block. And so we need to ensure that people have fully connected and protected routes from their house to their home, to their grocery store, to their daycare center, to their doctor, everything like that. So we want to ensure that this network is connected and going everywhere it needs to go. Okay, those are our main recommendations. Anyone have any questions about the recommendations? No? Okay, cool. Moving on. What can we do? Great. You can rally for the streets plan. So our rally is happening on Tuesday at 9 a.m. It's gonna be really exciting. It's gonna be really fun. There's gonna be lots of signs that you can hold. You can even bring them home and keep them like a little keepsake, to remember your rally. It's gonna be really great. We're all gonna be there, and we're gonna be demanding what we want. Things happen because people ask for them, and they ask for them loudly and repeatedly over and over and over again. And this is one of the times that we're gonna be doing that. We're not gonna get a streets plan. That's what we need. We're not gonna get the bike and bus lanes that we need. We're not gonna get the New York City that we deserve unless we show up every single day and we ask for it and we demand it and we're extremely annoying. And step one for us doing that is Tuesday, 9 a.m. Excited to see you all there. Next slide. What are we doing after the rally? We're going into this building. So the outside steps of this building are the steps of City Hall. That's where we're going to be having the rally. As you can see, a beautiful visual. And then if you look in that upper right-hand corner, that is the City Council chambers. That's where we'll be heading after. I believe this is a City Council chamber hearing. And that's where we'll be submitting testimony and giving testimony. So you have 2 minutes to speak for your testimony. So I highly recommend writing it out in advance, what you want to say, perhaps timing yourself, seeing how it goes. And then we're all going to go one by one. They'll call you by name. Everyone goes in a row. They seat 4 or 5 people at a time, and then they go through the next 4 or 5 people. And you're really just going to speak out what the streets plan means for you, what a better New York City means for you, what a connected bike ride between your house and your work means for you, what a bus that actually gets you to your kids' school on time means for you, and how a better streets plan, a better street grid, and a better transportation system in New York City will improve your life. And we're here to help with any component of those testimony, writing them, thinking about them, talking about them. Just shoot us an email. You can email us. I can drop my email in the chat and you can ask me any questions. So yeah, the final closing message and how we're thinking about all of this with the streets plan on the left is the bike lane map of New York City, and I think it looks kind of pathetic. I'm seeing a lot of blue lines, which are those paint-only bike lanes that we don't want to see. We're really not seeing enough green, particularly in Queens. Queens is really, really, really white. Also in the Bronx, also much of Brooklyn. So the whole point of this hearing is to turn this map green, and that is what we are going to do. And yeah, just like Elizabeth said at the beginning, the mayor wants to make New York City streets the envy of the world, and the streets plan is how we turn that dream into a reality. So it sounds a little bit technical, it sounds a little bit boring, but it is a really critical piece into actually building, demanding, and getting the different kind of streets that we need to have better lives. That's it.
Thank you, Alexa. All right. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Okay. I want to open for questions, and anything people are wondering about um, the bill, the hearing. Emily, just a response to your note in the chat. When they passed the law in 2019, they included metrics requirements for the first plan, the 2021 to 2026 one, and then they did also in their foresight include some requirements for the second plan, 2027 to 2032. So the law in 2019 had some requirements that they already put in place for this version that's going to come out. There is a lot of room to play with there of what can be put in the next plan. What we're expecting is that DOT will come and present kind of a snapshot of where we are today, of what happened in 2025. They're also required to put out a report every year of how they're doing and how the streets plan has been doing. They haven't put theirs out yet for what happened in 2025, a full kind of overview. So that they'll likely kind of be speaking to at the hearing, sharing where everything is. And then they might give kind of like a peek into what the next one will be. But really, that's why public testimony and public comment is so important because they will kind of present where we are and what the council needs to hear is where do we need to go. And that's where we all come in. That's where I think, as Alexa said, we want our message to be very strong of we're not just saying, great, let's just get by with whatever is the easiest, the lowest common denominator. What we want is we want to think bigger and better. And we really have an exciting moment to do so. This mayor ran um, on redesigning our streets, on having a streetscape that works for all of us, on having fast and free buses, right? And so all of those are things that the streets plan can help make us that can help make happen for us. The way we get faster buses is by building dedicated bus lanes, is by clearing blocked lanes, is by building, more lanes for buses. So the streets plan is just a really key tool for us to accomplish a lot of the campaigns that we're working on at the local level too. So we have a lot of, kind of local street design projects. All of those fit within the streets plan. When we achieve those local campaign wins, all of that goes into the overall streets plan that the city needs to be implementing. Great. Any
Can we
questions
go
on?
back?
Yeah.
Can we go back to the point on how to measure, like the measurement and transparency piece, like why that's so important? Is there measurements that have been working for our advocacy, or is there measurements that could make our advocacy more effective? If we could just speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think overall, our job is accountability. Government often doesn't do things unless they're pushed to. And in the last administration, one really key way that we held them accountable on the streets plan was we put out a tracker on how the city was doing on following the legal mandate of required bike lanes each year. And our partners at Riders Alliance had created a tracker on how the city was doing on meeting the bus lane requirements each year. The city did, unfortunately, so bad on following the bus lane requirements that it was, after a few years, it was like, well, you're still only at 3 of 30. So, you know, um, so then we escalate, right? As an advocacy tool. But the really holding the city accountable to the legal mandate, to the metrics of saying you are under law tasked and required to do this. I think we saw move a lot of projects forward. We need a lot more projects than what has happened, and we're hopeful that with you know uh, this new administration, it seems like they're already taking the streets plan more seriously. Um, but we still have our role to play as advocates of pushing and holding people accountable because government moves slowly, kind of by nature sometimes. We need them in order to hit the numbers and to hit the work and the scale of change that has to happen. This is going to have to be a really big priority, and we're going to need to see projects kind of coming out day after day after day. And that again, as we say, is really the role of advocates, is our job to push every day and harder. And if they don't feel pressure, they're not going to feel compelled to have to do the work. Great. Other questions? Any questions on, and is anyone's first time who is going to testify? Um, Wondering about the testifying experience? Yeah, Steve.
Hello. So just real quick, I see in the app and the email there was the streets plan testimony sign up, Google Doc. I just filled that out and then I don't have to worry about submitting anything to City Hall about showing up or anything. We'll move on from there. That's step one is fill out this Google Doc and then we're good to go.
Yes, so thank you for filling that out. We'll follow up with you with all the stuff you need. And yeah, so just to kind of walk through it for everyone, there are two ways to testify at a council hearing. You can either go in person, join us at City Hall, as Alexa showed. City Hall, we kind of go inside. DOT will testify first, and then it opens for public comment. We sign up there, and then we get called to testify. So each person will kind of go speak then. You have 2 minutes. And the council sometimes asks you questions, often not, but then that's entered into the record. Another way to testify is virtual. The city council also they hold their hearings hybrid, so they have all the people in person testify first. If you have signed up to testify virtually, if you're like, I'm in the middle of my workday, but I really want to get this in, which we love, we appreciate, you can log into the Zoom, and then when they call you, you unmute and all that. So you can do that very much as well. That is a great option. Let us know if you're interested in that. Um, and then the third is submitting written testimony, written comments. All of these are entered into the record, so they are all important. We meet with city council members. We also meet with the committee staff, and so the transportation committee. We meet with them in advance of the hearing to tell them what we think. And then we meet with them after a council hearing too. And the council transportation committee staff uh, read all of the testimony. So if you submit it written, they will go back and look at it. They take it in. They say, okay, this is, overall what we heard from everyone. And then when we go in to meet with them later, uh, we can say you got, all of these public comments, and you had all these different people testify and submit written comments about these three asks. This is how serious it is for New Yorkers. So, all of that goes into the council taking it seriously, to the administration taking it seriously. Um, any level of engagement that you have is great because it all goes into this larger push. So if you're interested in testifying in some form, please fill out the Google form and say, in person, virtual. But yes, as Sean put in the chat, we have a transalt.org/testify. We have kind of a whole here's what to expect primer. Um, all right. Yeah, Steve.
One more question. How much time do you think this is going to take up on Tuesday? Just curious for my schedule.
So rally at 9, which is great. 10 to probably 11:30 or 11 will be the DOT testimony, I expect. It depends on how many council members ask questions of DOT. We do have a new council transportation committee with a lot of new great members. The last term, our council transportation committee had some unsupportive members. And so, they often didn't press on things that we would have liked them to. But so I say that because on Tuesday we might have a bunch of, street safety forward council members in the committee coming and pushing DOT and saying, I want to talk all about the streets plan. I want to talk about these bus speeds and bike lanes. So that could lead it to the DOT portion to run longer. But usually DOT will testify for about an hour, maybe a little over, and then public comment. So I would, expect like a 9 to 1 type of thing. Again, if you want to testify virtually, you can, have it open on your computer while you're, if you're working at the same time. And then when they call you, you can jump in. So that's also an option.
Elizabeth,
There's
good
no,
question in the.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
there's no endpoint for public comment on schedule. It's just going to keep going, or is there a time when it's over?
Um, Great. So, everyone who signs up is allowed to speak.
Okay.
I used to work in the council, and the longest hearing I I staffed was a closed Rikers hearing, and that one went, I think, till 9 p.m. at night. This one won't go until 9 p.m. at night. Yeah, they're often like 3 or 4 hours overall.
That's what I figured. I just didn't know if there was actual like window on the finishing. Good to know that there's not. So hopefully many people has things to say.
Yeah. And that's where
Elizabeth, a
the
question around.
2 minutes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Perfect. Yes, a question in the
A
chat.
question around. Will there be
Mm.
talking points shared out in a Google Doc or something like that? And I would just expand on that question. Is there things that people should consider to put in their testimony? Obviously we're talking bikes, bus lanes. We're also talking pedestrianization, and what kind of things should people consider when crafting their testimonies in addition to the 2-minute limit?
Thanks. Yeah.
A great
Um,
question. Oh, sorry.
no, go.
That's a great question. And I posted a link in this chat that's to our blog post on the streets plan. And our blog post has basically all of this information about our main asks, just written out a little bit more with some more information. And so I highly recommend pulling from that. Everything that we're going to say is going to be really heavily modeled on this blog post. And so I highly recommend pulling from there too. It's a little bit more written out than just specific talking points. And there are all 7 different options in there. So feel free to like mix and match, do all 7, do the 3 that are most important to you. If you want to send me like a draft of it, have us look at it, anything like that, we are here to help. Just email it to me anytime and we can take a look. But definitely recommend going from that blog post.
Yeah. And if you feel compelled to share any personal story, if you're submitting written comments and you want to talk about what this means to you, that's also always great. But yeah, the for spoken, also because it's a 2-minute window, just identifying yourself, why you're here, and hitting the talking points is great, most important. Thanks. Great. Any other questions? Sweet. Um, Just to say again, the streets plan is a really exciting document or like ability to be a tool for our city if it actually moves from being a document to being reality. And so there is a huge opportunity for us, and that is why we're here and why we are so appreciative of all of you taking the time and advocating and taking time out of your day and calling your council members and all of that is just really none of this happens without you all and with people pushing. Oh, and Emily said, what happens after the hearing? So great question. So this is an oversight hearing, which means it's kind of like on the topic overall. There are bills that will be heard in the hearing as well, some on topic, some off topic. But because this is beginning of the term, they're also trying to move a lot of bills that are reintroduced from last session through. So there are also a number of bills that are on the agenda for the hearing that they're working to get through. Some of which we love. The outdoor dining, year-round outdoor dining bill is being heard. So that is great. That is a great sign that they have added it to the agenda so soon into the year already. And then there is a bill to your second question here of intro to update that council member Lincoln Ressler is introducing actually at the hearing of bringing back the requirement for 1 million square feet of pedestrian space every year. So that is a bill that would strengthen the streets plan, that would add to the legal requirement that will say for the next phase they have to really, add some stronger numbers onto the pedestrian public space requirements. So that one we're excited about, and that kind of adds to the conversation we're having, and it adds pressure to it. And so hopefully that one can move quickly as well. And if the just kind of the legal process, legislative process is after whatever bills get heard, that means that they are ready to then go for a vote. So every bill gets introduced, is required to have a public hearing, and then can be brought up for a vote. So every bill that will be heard will then be on the waiting list to get a vote. So there might be, after this hearing, after what comes out in the conversation and what is pushed on for the next phase of the streets plan, that might lead to more bills that get introduced and that get moved forward. And so all of this is us informing the conversation too, informing what the council thinks and what ideas the council has to make the streets plan stronger and viable. And so, kind of more to come there, but we're hoping the pedestrian requirement bill for the streets plan will move quickly through from this hearing to then getting a vote, and that we'll see some changes as soon as that passes, if and when it does, which looks likely. Yeah. Great.
And Rose here just wanted to add that the council does do things like count the number of people who give testimony, either spoken or written, at these hearings. And so your testimony really does matter, even if you can only just write in. Every testimony matters. If you have friends who can write in as well, like the more people who write in, the more people who give verbal testimony, the more support that the council knows the streets plan has, and the harder they'll push the DOT to meet their legal demands under the streets plan and get, those pedestrian plazas in, those bus lanes in, those bike lanes in, etc. And so in case you think you're just another voice, like you're really not.
Amazing. Great.